Jigara Igbara, known to his followers as Jay Mazzini, went from beloved Instagram personality to supervillain in a matter of months. He kidnapped and beat a rival while defrauding his followers of millions of dollars. He was eventually arrested in March of 2021 and is looking at quite a few years behind bars. How did Jay Mazzini fall so far? Had he been scamming his followers the whole time? Jay was living the good life, at least he seemed to be. He claimed to be worth at least $33 million, but details of how he attained such a fortune are foggy. Could he have been lying about it the whole time? It sure seems like it now. No matter the case, Mazzini was very open about flaunting his money. He wanted his followers to know exactly how much money he had and how ready he was to give it all away. He was certainly different from your usual rich 20-something-year-old with an Instagram account. Instead of cars and flashy accessories, Mazzini used his platform to build his public perception by posting videos of himself handing out stacks of cash to random people. This, of course, was such a nice gesture that it not only won him the public's trust, but also proved, in a way, that he had that kind of cash on hand. Mazzini would hand out as much as $10,000 in cash to people. Examples include people walking in the streets, shopping at Walmart, or working the drive-thru window at McDonald's. In fact, it was a video he did with rapper 50 Cent that put Mazzini on everyone's radar. In the video, Mazzini is seen approaching the drive-thru window of a Burger King, where he and 50 Cent began handing out stacks of cash. The workers are obviously super happy. He and 50 even proceeded up the line of cars and handed money through the windows of unsuspecting drivers. In total, the pair handed out roughly $60,000. Who wouldn't be excited if 50 Cent handed them $10,000 through their window, right? Before his downfall, Mazzini had gathered considerable influence on the internet. Videos of his philanthropic acts and local news coverage had garnered him close to 1 million followers on Instagram. Again, where and how Mazzini got his fortune is unclear, but he used to drop hints in some of his self-promotion videos. They included Mazzini Academy, which taught people how to trade, a clothing brand called Mazzini Italy, and Halal Capital, an investment company designed to help Muslims make smart and halal-based investments. Whether or not these ventures made Mazzini enough money to hand out tens of thousands of dollars is another question altogether. We'll just look at what each business venture actually did and how Mazzini promoted them to his unsuspecting followers. First on the list of Mazzini's ventures was Mazzini Academy. This is a learning platform that he came up with aimed at teaching people how to trade various financial assets such as stocks, forex, cryptocurrencies, and options. Yeah, you can already tell where this is going. Students had to pay $250 for full-year access to trading news, market analysis, and trading strategies. They also gained access to Jay Mazzini, along with a bunch of other supposed trading experts. Do we even need to say that Mazzini had zero proven track record of being a successful trader? Not even that. He had no proof that he was even a trader to begin with, never mind a successful one. Mazzini Academy even had the audacity to state that the original price of the class was $1,199 and made it look like students were getting the deal of a lifetime by paying only $250. We'd like to find one person who paid almost $1,200 for the class. Mazzini tried to prove his trading know-how by claiming that he was making million-dollar trades every day on the Academy's website. He went as far as saying he made a new Lamborghini by trading for just 30 minutes. Again, he never showed any proof of such outrageous claims, but he knew what he was doing. It was a scam. He just knew his followers trusted him enough to believe him without question. This was thanks to the public image he had built for himself by shelling out thousands of dollars to strangers. These giveaways were the primary way he promoted his most popular venture, the Mazzini Italy clothing line. It's not exactly clear when Mazzini launched the clothing company, but it was certainly a big part of his personal brand. Aside from his handout videos, he heavily promoted Mazzini Italy using the promise of giveaways to lure in his followers. The promises themselves were pretty outrageous. It's baffling that so many people fell into the palm of his hand. To win free money, you had to be amongst the first several buyers and have a set number of items in your order. For instance, only the first 200 people buying at least 6 items would qualify for a cash reward. On the surface, this seemed perfectly normal. It's not unusual for businesses to push cash or discount rewards to increase sales. We've all heard or seen those ads saying the first 10 callers will get a second item free. The way Mazzini went about about it was pretty questionable. For starters, he promised outrageous sums of money that would have been impossible to fill, even if he had sold all the clothes on the Mazzini Italy website. For example, in one video, he promised to give the first 1,000 buyers $1,200 each as long as they ordered a minimum of 6 items. The math here doesn't make sense business-wise. Assuming that each of the 1,000 buyers bought the required 6 items, paid the maximum possible price, which was $85 per item, he would have sold $510,000 worth of clothes. That's certainly not enough to cover his supposed cash giveaway, which would have amounted to $12 million. He promised $10,000, $30,000, $40,000, and even as much as $125,000 to get people to either purchase his Mazzini Italy merch or Academy subscriptions and other giveaways. In total, he promised a little over $107 million in giveaways across a few clips, which obviously doesn't make any business sense. But of course, do we need to say that he never gave any of his shop a single dollar? Many people rightly called him out when they never received any of the promised cash in their shipment, but Mazzini was ready with an excuse, an absurd one at that. He claimed the cash might have been stolen by, get this, postal workers. However, there was never any evidence that the shipping boxes had been tampered with. Most people could see through the deceit. For Mazzini, that just resulted in a ton of chargebacks and customer disputes, ultimately leading to a ban on his PayPal account. Mazzini's treachery went beyond the online world of social media stardom. He also tapped into his Muslim faith to steal millions of dollars through halal capital. It was a classic example of affinity fraud. What exactly is affinity fraud? It's a scheme in which the fraudster targets a particular ethnic or religious group of people of which they're a part. In a tight-knit group, it's easy for people to fall for this kind of scam because they trust each other. One of my own would never hurt me, would be the typical mentality. That's exactly what Mazzini aimed to exploit with halal capital. This investment firm was tailored according to Islamic customs, hence the name halal, which directly translates to permissible. They promised to make investments that adhere to those customs as well. He struck a friendship with Noor Rabah, a funeral home owner and well-respected faithful in his local New York community. Mazzini went overboard to paint himself as someone who knew how to handle money. He told Noor that he was a licensed financial professional and a personal investor thanks to his family's vast wealth. On top of that, he presented himself as a devout Muslim looking to help the local Muslim community with his investment expertise. It was an excellent pitch to Noor. And in October 2019, the pair launched Halal Capital, each with clearly defined role. Noor would convince local Muslim groups to pool their fund, while Mazzini would control the company's investment decision. Noor held his part of the deal. Being a respectable guy in the community, the company raised a little over $10 million from Muslim groups, including a Brooklyn mosque. Investors were promised significant returns on their investment, a common occurrence in most Ponzi schemes. That would have been the case if Jay actually intended to help the community, as he had led the investors to believe. It turns out he had other plans, and none of them involved paying back halal capital investors. Instead of profit, Mazzini gave investors nothing but excuses. He kept coming up with methods to persuade the people he defrauded to roll over their promised return. This meant putting their non-existent profit back into the company to make more money. While at it, Mazzini made sure to keep up his innocent appearance by contacting Noor for religious guidance. When Noor and other halal capital investors could no longer put up with the excuses, Mazzini outlandishly claimed that he had been robbed at gunpoint. Of course, at that point, they knew they had been swindled. They knew the only way they would get any of their money back was to get the courts involved. But even with a lawsuit hot on his heels, Jay wouldn't stop trying to scam more of his followers. What's even more amazing is they continued to fall for it. Starting in January 2021, Mazzini offered to buy Bitcoin from his followers at prices between 3.5 and 5% above the cryptocurrency's market value. His reason? He claimed he had been banned from major cryptocurrency exchanges because he was buying too much. Getting people to trust him wasn't a problem. They already did. He sent prospective sellers images of wire transfer confirmation, passports, and other personal documents to convince them further. His victims would then immediately transfer their Bitcoin to his wallet. The transfers, of course, were a varying amount, but a lot of them were quite substantial. For instance, several people sent Bitcoin equivalent to $500,000 according to court documents. Before he was arrested, Mazzini had received $2.5 million worth of Bitcoin, none of which he had paid. With such a clear case of fraud, it was only a matter of time before the law finally caught up with him, and it did. Although not exactly for being a suspected scammer at first. Aside from being an alleged scammer, Mazzini proved that he was capable of other crime. After a rival threatened to expose his illegal underdealing, Mazzini set up a plan to keep him quiet. According to court documents, Jay lured this guy out by promising to work out their differences at a coffee shop in New Jersey. You guys getting a Sopranos vibe yet? But when he got into Jay's car to drive to the coffee spot. 2 other men joined him. They then proceeded to, let's just say, do more than intimidate him. Afterward, they supposedly dropped this guy on the side of the road without his clothes. Mazzini was eventually arrested for the kidnapping, and he was federally charged with wire fraud related to the $2.5 million Bitcoin scam. Mazzini's world was about to come crumbling down. This may be the part you're wanting to hear. In Mazzini's first public court appearance on Zoom, he burst into tears after his request for an earlier release on bail was denied by the judge. It was alleged that Mazzini had plans to flee to Colombia before he was arrested. This made him a flight risk after his arrest, and the judge ordered him to remain in jail until his trial date. Of course, this just further proves Mazzini's incompetence. Colombia and the United States have an agreed-upon extradition treaty. This means U.S. officials could still charge Mazzini and bring him back to the United States. If he wanted to get away with it, he could have fled to a country such as Morocco, where no such treaty exists. Casablanca, Morocco is actually known as a fugitive's paradise. In fact, one other guy who pulled off a billion-dollar scam did exactly that, but he actually had a change of heart and flew back to the States, even after federal agents couldn't get to him. Find out more in this video. According to a Bergen County judge, Mazzini also posed a considerable danger to the assault victim and the community. If found guilty of kidnapping and assault, Mazzini is looking at 15 to 30 years in prison. The wire fraud charges could see him serve up to 20 years. In total, it's safe to assume that Jay Mazzini won't be stealing another penny from anybody, at least not for the next 50 years. Click to watch one of these next videos.